Humanity withdraws from peace talks. The Galactic Council realizes its greatest mistake. Part 1. The final offer, the massive doors to the Galactic Council chamber parted with a deep, resonant hum. Ambassador Marcus Reynolds took a steady breath and stepped forward, his footsteps echoing across the polished stone floor. The chamber had been deliberately designed to intimidate. A cavernous circular room with walls that stretched hundreds of meters upward, disappearing into artificial mist. Thousands of alien representatives observed from elevated platforms arranged in concentric rings, their varied forms creating a living tapestry of galactic diversity. Marcus felt their eyes upon him. Compound, faceted, gelatinous, sensory appendages of every imaginable configuration, all focused on the lone human standing at the center of the chamber. The acoustics had been engineered to amplify the council speakers' voices, while subtly diminishing any response from the petitioning party. Psychological warfare through architecture. Behind him, the small human delegation sat quietly at their assigned bench. 5 men and women in simple blue uniforms, Earth's diplomatic corps. Unlike the ornate regalia and biological displays of the alien representatives, the humans were unadorned yet immaculate. Each held a datapad, expressions neutral, betraying nothing. High Speaker Vorak leaned forward from his elevated podium, the movement causing his ceremonial armor plates to shift with a metallic rasp. Standing over 3 meters tall, the reptilian speaker's scaled head was adorned with bioluminescent plates that pulsed with his emotional state. Currently, they flashed patterns of impatience and thinly veiled contempt. The council's patience wears thin. Ambassador Reynolds. Vorak's voice boomed across the chamber, the acoustics carrying his words to every corner. 3 cycles of negotiation, and humanity continues to refuse our generous offer of protectorate status. The second speaker, Lyrith, shifted her translucent body. Her species communicated partially through color changes, and currently, her appendages shimmered with bioluminescent anger. Most species consider it an honor to receive council protection, she added, her melodious voice contrasting with her obvious irritation. Marcus stood perfectly still, his posture relaxed yet dignified. He had practiced for months to appear comfortable in the face of such overwhelming alien presence. "We appreciate the council's offer," Marcus responded, his voice somehow carrying despite the architectural disadvantage. "Earth acknowledges the council's ancient authority and the protection it provides to developing worlds." A murmur of approval rippled through the chamber. The council representatives expected deference from primitive species. Earth had only achieved faster-than-light travel 40 years ago, mere moments in galactic terms. However, Marcus continued, Earth must decline any arrangement that restricts our deep space exploration or requires technology transfers without mutual exchange. The murmur turned to outright muttering. Most species required centuries to reach humanity's current development level. These primitives had progressed from their first lunar landing to FTL drives in less than a century, and yet they dared to refuse council oversight? The third speaker drifted closer. A gaseous entity contained within an ornate mechanical shell, its voice emerged as a harmonious blend of tones. "Ambassador, perhaps you misunderstand the situation. The Treaty of Galactic Integration has stood for 12 millennia. All developing species accept council guidance during their formative interstellar period. No exceptions have been granted," added Lyrith. "None." Marcus nodded respectfully. "We understand the precedent, second speaker. Earth has studied the treaty extensively. We simply believe that certain provisions are unnecessary in our case." High Speaker Vorak's bioluminescent plates flashed bright orange, a clear sign of anger in his species. "Unnecessary? Your people barely understand gravitational manipulation, yet you stand before this ancient body and declare our wisdom unnecessary?" "Only certain provisions," Marcus clarified calmly. "Earth respects the Council's experience, but we cannot accept restrictions on our scientific advancement or the mandatory presence of Council advisors in our government." "Then perhaps integration isn't Earth's path forward," Marcus added, his tone measured. The human delegation behind Marcus activated their datapad simultaneously. Information flowed between them silently. The third speaker's containment shell hummed as it moved closer. "Remember Proxima Centauri, Ambassador. The harvesters approach your sector. Without council protection, threats, third speaker?" Marcus interrupted, deliberately breaking protocol. Is that the Council's final position? A shocked silence fell over the chamber. No petitioner interrupted a Council speaker. It simply wasn't done. Vorik slammed his ceremonial staff against the floor, sending a booming echo throughout the chamber. Your species' arrogance exceeds all reasonable bounds. The Council offers salvation from extinction, yet you demand concessions as equals. Marcus looked up, his expression unchanged. High Speaker, my government anticipated this outcome. He paused as his communication device pulsed once. I've just received final authorization. Earth hereby withdraws from these peace negotiations, effective immediately. The silence that followed was absolute. In 12,000 years of Council history, no species had ever withdrawn from integration talks. We will depart Council space within the standard time frame outlined in Section 7 of the Diplomatic Accords. Marcus continued. Our vessels will begin withdrawal procedures within the hour. The human delegation stood in unison. You doom your people to isolation or worse, Vorik warned, genuine concern mixing with his anger. The harvesters show no mercy to unprotected worlds. Perhaps, Marcus answered calmly. Or perhaps we understand more than you realize. He bowed slightly, respectful but not submissive. Good day, Council representatives. As the humans turned to leave, the massive holographic display behind the Council podium flickered briefly. So quickly most delegates missed it. But the third speaker's containment shell vibrated in alarm. Something had just accessed Council systems, if only for a microsecond. In the observation gallery, an unnoticed figure watched the proceedings with intense focus. Admiral Eliza Foster of Earth's Defense Command touched her earpiece and whispered, Operation groundwork complete. Withdrawal protocol initiated. The human delegation walked out with measured steps, neither hurrying nor dawdling. Not until they were aboard their diplomatic vessel did Marcus allow his shoulders to relax slightly. Did we get what we needed? He asked quietly. His communications officer nodded. 5.3 seconds of unrestricted access to the Council's central database. The quantum intrusion was successful. Marcus looked out the viewport at the massive Council station, a structure larger than Earth's moon, housing representatives from over 700 species. They still think we're primitives, he mused. 3 years of negotiations just to get close enough to their systems. Was it worth it? Asked his second, a woman named Talia. We'll know soon enough, Marcus replied. The Council believes we're retreating in fear. By the time they realize their mistake, it will be too late, completed Admiral Foster, entering the ship's bridge. Well done, Ambassador. The performance was perfect. Not a performance, Marcus corrected. I meant every word. We would have accepted a fair partnership. They're just incapable of seeing us as equals. Foster nodded grimly. Well, they'll see us clearly soon enough. The quantum data is transmitting to Earth now. Operation Shadow begins in 48 hours. As their ship disengaged from the Council station, the delegation watched the massive structure recede. None spoke the obvious, that humanity had just challenged the most powerful governing body in known space. 12,000 years of uncontested authority, 716 member species, millions of worlds under their control, and humanity had just told them no. Back in the Council chamber, the representatives argued furiously about the unprecedented human withdrawal. Only Elder Joman, the oldest living being in Council space, remained silent, his ancient eyes troubled. You fear the wrong thing, he finally said, silencing the chamber. You fear their defiance when you should fear their preparation. What do you mean, Elder? Asked Voruk. In all our history, no species has withdrawn from protection, Joman said quietly. Ask yourselves why these humans are different. Ask yourselves what they know that we do not. By the time the Council realized the answer to that question, it would indeed be too late. Humanity's greatest deception wasn't in what they had said during the peace talks. It was in what they had hidden all along. Humanity withdraws from peace talks, the Galactic. Council realizes its greatest mistake. Part 2. Shadows and Whispers. Council enforcer Dravik Tull hunched over his command console aboard the monitoring station that orbited the edge of former human space. The massive view screen before him showed nothing but the usual traffic patterns: supply vessels, routine patrols, and the occasional merchant ship skirting the newly established buffer zone. His faceted eyes scanned multiple displays simultaneously, compound vision allowing him to process several data feeds at once. Another pointless shift. His second-in-command Morrow grumbled from the adjacent station. The arthropoid officer's multiple limbs manipulated controls with practiced efficiency, despite his obvious boredom. 2 months of watching, and the humans haven't made a single aggressive move. Dravik's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. The High Council doesn't deploy 17 battle cruisers to the same sector for nothing. 17 at last count, Morrow confirmed, bringing up the tactical display. Plus support vessels and 3 deep space monitoring arrays, all to watch a primitive species that barely has a dozen FTL-capable ships. Their conversation halted as priority alert icons flashed across their screens in synchronized warning. Dravik's carapace stiffened as distress signals began pouring in from vessels near the Carillion Nebula, over 30 light-years from Earth. Impossible, Dravik muttered, mandibles clicking nervously. That's Council military transport Indomitable. How could humans project force that far? The communications officer, a tall avian being with iridescent feathers, interrupted with increasing alarm. Sir, we're receiving emergency broadcasts from 6 sectors simultaneously. On the main viewer, fragmented messages played from panicking alien vessels. Unknown technology. Systems failing. They were waiting for us. How did they know our approach vector? Morrow's limbs worked frantically across his console. No human vessels detected in any sector. No warp signatures, no engine emissions, nothing. Dravik's compound eyes reflected the flashing alert symbols. Report to Central Command. All monitoring stations to maximum alert. Deploy scout vessels to last known coordinates of each distress signal. As the bridge erupted into action, Dravik moved to a secure communications terminal. This is impossible, he muttered to himself. They shouldn't have this capability. They can't. Across the galaxy, in the gleaming spires of the Council's Central Command, Intelligence Division Director Narration received the urgent reports with growing concern. Her species' natural telepathic abilities made her ideal for information assessment. But now her cranial ridges pulsed with stress pigmentation as she compiled the alarming data. 17 disappearances in 7 days, she informed the Emergency Council session, her voice steady despite her obvious concern. Every vessel was either monitoring human space or transporting military assets to containment positions. High Speaker Vorik leaned forward from his elevated position, ceremonial armor glinting under the chamber's lights. Director, speak plainly. Are humans responsible for these incidents? We have no direct evidence, Narration admitted, displaying holographic representations of the affected sectors. No human vessels have been detected beyond their solar system, but every affected ship reported unusual energy signatures seconds before communications failed. Impossible. The third speaker's mechanical voice vibrated with certainty. Their technology is primitive. We've monitored their development for decades. They barely understand basic spatial manipulation. An aide rushed into the chamber, bypassing security protocols, something unheard of in council proceedings. He whispered urgently to Director Narration, whose skin blanched to a stark white, the color of extreme alarm in her species. Speakers. The harvesters have altered course, she announced, her voice barely audible. Explain, Vorik demanded. They're no longer approaching human space, Narration clarified, bringing up a stellar map showing the massive harvester fleet's trajectory. They've bypassed the human sector entirely, almost as if, she hesitated, as if they're avoiding it. Murmurs spread through the chamber like wildfire. The harvesters, mysterious entities that consumed entire star systems, had never altered course in recorded history. They moved through the galaxy like a force of nature, implacable and unstoppable. The Council's strategy had always been evacuation, never confrontation. Impossible, the third speaker repeated, but with less conviction. Second speaker Lirith's translucent appendages rippled with agitation. Could the humans have developed some deterrent technology? Something we've overlooked? They've had interstellar capability for less than half a century, Vorik responded dismissively. No species develops that rapidly. No council species, corrected the ancient voice of Elder Joman, who rarely spoke at such gatherings. We know very little about human potential. Perhaps that was our mistake. Back at Earth's lunar command, Admiral Eliza Foster reviewed holographic projections with her command staff. The three-dimensional display showed council vessel movements in real time, information they shouldn't possibly have access to. The demonstration was sufficient, Foster noted, watching as Council battlecruisers repositioned themselves in response to the mysterious disappearances. They're consolidating their forces rather than maintaining the cordon. Exactly as predicted. Activate Phase 2. Lieutenant Commander Jackson looked troubled. Admiral, despite our technological advantage, they still outnumber us thousands to one. If the Council commits to full military action, they've counted our ships, Thomas, Foster interrupted with a slight smile. They never counted our ideas. She gestured to the holographic display. The Council believes power comes from size. Bigger fleets, more planets, greater numbers. Quantity is their quality. But humanity chose a different path. Director of Science Melissa Hayes entered the command center, her normally calm demeanor animated with excitement. The Jupiter array is fully operational, Admiral. All 7 nexus points are synchronized and ready for quantum deployment. Foster nodded. Begin transmission to the Harvester Collective. Let's see if our theory is correct. In the darkest depths of Jupiter's atmosphere, hidden from external scans by the gas giant's natural interference, something massive stirred to life. Not a vessel or station, but a megastructure of impossible complexity. A quantum consciousness array built in absolute secrecy during the long years of peace talks with the Council. Similar structures activated throughout the Sol system, concealed within asteroids beneath planetary crusts, and in dimensional pockets humanity had discovered but kept hidden from Council observers. Quantum communication networks established connections across distances that should have made such links impossible. Silent commands propagated to invisible assets scattered across Council space. Microscopic quantum receivers placed by seemingly innocent research vessels years earlier. Harvester Collective acknowledging our signal, reported Hayes, her eyes widening as she read incoming data. They're responding. Foster allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The Council calls them harvesters because that's all they understand. Consumption, destruction. They never bothered to ask if these entities might be something else entirely. Jackson studied the quantum communications feed with awe. They're not attacking us because they recognize what we've built. Precisely, Foster confirmed. While the Council feared our development, we reached a technological threshold they've been suppressing for millennia. On the other side of the moon base, Ambassador Marcus Reynolds stared out at the Earth below, its blue expanse seemingly peaceful despite the galactic crisis unfolding. Was withdrawal the right choice? He asked quietly, not turning as Foster entered the observation deck. They gave us no option, she replied. The treaty would have placed limits on our quantum research. The advisors would have discovered the Jupiter array within months. And now we've revealed our hand, Marcus noted. The Council will respond with everything they have once they understand what we've done. Foster stood beside him, watching Earth rotate slowly below. Let them come, she said calmly. The quantum network extends far beyond what they can imagine. Humanity was never going to be contained by their rules. And the harvesters? Marcus asked. Foster's expression softened slightly. The greatest victims of the Council's fear. But we're about to change that narrative. Throughout Council space, more vessels disappeared without explanation. Monitoring stations went dark. Communication relays failed. No attacks were detected, no human ships observed. Just silence spreading across the stars like a shadow. The Council had believed they were dealing with primitive newcomers to the galactic stage. Arrogant, perhaps, but ultimately manageable. They were wrong. Humanity had spent decades appearing less advanced than they were, carefully concealing their quantum consciousness technology. The very advancement the Council had forbidden all species to develop. The peace talks had never been about integration. They had been about buying time. And now, as Council forces scrambled to understand what was happening, humanity's true capabilities were emerging from the shadows, not with fleets or weapons, but with something far more powerful. Technology the Council had feared for 12,000 years. Humanity withdraws from peace talks. The Galactic Council realizes its greatest mistake. Part 3. The Impossible Breach. The Galactic Archives, most secure facility in Council space. 60 levels deep beneath the ancient homeworld Taraxis Prime, protected by temporal locks and phase-shifted barriers. No unauthorized access had been recorded in 9,000 years, until today. Archivist First Class Telvor shuffled through the quantum-sealed chamber, housing the Council's most classified records. His species, evolutionarily selected for perfect recall and pathological honesty, had served as archives guardians since its founding. Tall and thin with pale, almost translucent skin that revealed the complex neural pathways beneath, Telvor's kind were valued for their inability to lie and their perfect memory. His routine security check stopped abruptly. Something was wrong. The quantum signature on Historical Sector 9 had been altered, so subtly that only a trained archivist would notice. Telvor's elongated fingers trembled as he accessed the security protocols. Security breach in Historical Sector 9, he reported, voice wavering. Files accessed without authorization. The emergency response team arrived within minutes. Chief Security Administrator Vira, an imposing figure whose exoskeleton gleamed with embedded security implants, examined the temporal logs with increasing disbelief. Impossible, she whispered, mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation. These files were accessed 3 years ago, but the temporal signature only just propagated to our systems. What files? Demanded Counselor Zen, who oversaw archive security. His crystalline form shifted colors with his emotional state, currently a deep, worried purple. Vira's exoskeleton clicked nervously. Everything regarding the precursor incident, the harvester origins, and the prohibition protocols. Zen froze, his crystalline structure momentarily rigid. No species knows those exist except Council founders. Humans shouldn't even know the archives exist, Telvor added, his perfect recall confirming the statement. The archive's location is restricted information, classified beyond even senior diplomatic clearance. Vira's analytical mind worked through the possibilities. The temporal displacement suggests quantum interference. Someone accessed these files by manipulating the very fabric of time-space. Impossible technology, Zen insisted, but his color had shifted to an uncertain blue-green. No current species possesses such capability. The humans withdrawn from peace talks 3 months ago, Telvor reminded them, his memory providing the exact date and time. Ambassador Reynolds specifically rejected Council oversight of their scientific developments. Vira's security implants pulsed as she received emergency updates. 7 more Council vessels have gone silent in the past hour. Still no trace of human ships beyond their system. Meanwhile, at the Galactic Council emergency session, the atmosphere crackled with tension. Representatives from all major species crowded the chamber. Fear evident across biological expression spanning hundreds of evolutionary paths. 7 more Council vessels have gone silent, High Speaker Vorik announced gravely. Still no trace of human ships beyond their system. Secondary Speaker Lirith's appendages twisted anxiously. We've lost contact with 3 outpost worlds near human space. Monitoring stations report unusual stellar activity throughout human territory. Energy signatures unlike anything in our database. The third speaker's mechanical shell vibrated with unusual intensity. Our scientific division reports quantum fluctuations across multiple sectors, patterns that defy established physics. A junior aide entered, bearing an unmarked data crystal, a primitive physical storage medium humans still used. This appeared in the High Speaker's chambers, the aide announced. Security has no explanation how it bypassed our defenses. The crystal contained only a simple text message. Attention Galactic Council. Withdraw all forces from Sol approach vectors. Cease surveillance operations. Further escalation will be answered. This is your only warning. Vorik slammed his ceremonial staff against the floor, the sound echoing through the chamber. Outrageous. They infiltrate our most secure facility to deliver threats? Intelligence Director Navarin's voice cut through the chaos. Speakers, we've confirmed human vessels have not left their system. Our monitoring arrays detect no propulsion signatures, no warp distortions, nothing that would indicate conventional movement. Then how are they disabling our ships? Demanded a representative from the Hevrian Confederation, whose world lay dangerously close to human space. Navarin's skin rippled with troubled patterns. Whatever they're doing it from Earth. On Earth, in the underground quantum nexus beneath the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Alia Patel monitored a wall of equations and pulsing data streams. Her team of physicists worked silently at consoles around her, each focused on different aspects of the massive quantum operation underway. Consciousness insertion successful, she reported, her voice calm, despite the historical significance of the moment. Quantum observers deployed throughout council space. They can't detect what they don't understand. Defense Secretary Williams nodded, his weathered face illuminated by the pulsing blue light of the quantum displays. How many nexus points established? 43, Elia answered, bringing up a galactic map showing pinpoints of light scattered across council territory, each capable of instantaneous effect without physical presence. Williams studied the strategic display showing the positions of council military assets. They're consolidating their fleet, preparing for direct action. Good, Elia replied with unexpected confidence. That makes our job easier when they're all in one place. Across the room, the quantum core pulsed with impossible energy, humanity's greatest scientific achievement, hidden from alien eyes during decades of seeming technological inferiority. The basketball-sized sphere contained more computing power than the entire council network, but its true function went far beyond mere calculation. They still think we need ships to travel, Williams murmured, watching as council battle cruisers formed into attack formations. Let's show them how wrong they are. At that moment in the Galactic Archives, Vira received an emergency alert that froze her blood. The temporal locks have failed, she reported to Counselor Zen. All archive levels are experiencing simultaneous quantum dissolution. Evacuation protocol. Zen commanded, his crystalline form flashing urgent red. Seal the archives! Too late, Telvor whispered, his perfect memory already recording what should have been impossible. The very walls of the archive were becoming transparent, revealing figures moving on the other side, not physically present, but somehow observable through quantum displacement. Human figures. They're not here, Telvor realized with dawning horror. They're everywhere at once, existing between moments. Across the galaxy, similar breaches occurred simultaneously. Council secure facilities reported quantum observers, human consciousness projected across impossible distances, witnessing, recording, but not interfering. In the council chamber, the full emergency session descended into near panic as reports flooded in from every sector. They've developed quantum consciousness technology, Elder Joman announced, silencing the chamber with the forbidden words. The very advancement the prohibition protocols were created to prevent. Impossible, the third speaker insisted. Our monitoring would have detected such development. Unless they've had it all along, Joman countered. Unless these humans were never the primitives we assumed. High Speaker Vorik's bioluminescent plates had dimmed to a dull gray, a sign of deep distress in his species. The archives breach? They know about the precursors. They know everything, Joman confirmed. The peace talks were never about integration. They were gathering intelligence while concealing their true capabilities. As if summoned by the words, the massive holographic projection system activated without command. The face of Admiral Eliza Foster appeared, impossibly bypassing all council security. Galactic Council representatives, she addressed them calmly. I speak as Earth Defense Force Commander. Your continued military buildup near Earth space demonstrates hostile intent despite our warning. How dare you infiltrate these sacred chambers? Vorik thundered, his plates flashing bright orange in fury. Foster continued as if unhearing. We've observed your deliberations regarding the prohibition protocols. We understand why your ancestors feared quantum consciousness technology, but humanity made a different choice. The hologram expanded, showing images of massive structures hidden throughout Earth's solar system, quantum nexus points, consciousness amplifiers, and technologies beyond council understanding. We didn't build warships because we don't need them, Foster explained. What you call prohibited technology, we call the Consciousness Integration Network. It's been operational for 15 years. Director Navarine stepped forward, her analytical mind making connections faster than her colleagues. That's why the harvesters avoid your space. They recognize the signature. Precisely, Foster nodded. We didn't withdraw from peace talks out of weakness. We withdrew because we recognized the council would never accept us as equals despite our advancement. The chamber erupted in panicked voices until Joman raised his ancient hand. The humans have accomplished what the precursors attempted, and what we destroyed them for. Horsiri humanity withdraws from peace talks. The Galactic Council realizes its greatest mistake. Part 4. The Revelation. The Galactic Council chamber had transformed into a crisis center. The ornate decorations and ceremonial spaces had been pushed aside to make room for tactical displays and emergency communication arrays. Holographic projections showed the Harvester fleet advancing inexorably toward the core worlds. Hundreds of representatives from affected systems crowded the chamber, their varied biologies united in fear. High Speaker Voruk appeared broken, his normally imposing stature diminished. He had discarded his ornate ceremonial armor, appearing smaller without it. The bioluminescent plates on his head flickered weakly with exhaustion and stress. "How long until Harvester forces reach Central Worlds?" he asked, voice lacking its usual commanding resonance. 18 days at current velocity, an aide responded after consulting the tactical display. Second speaker, Lirith's translucent form had become almost completely transparent, a stress response in her species. "Evacuation protocols are active in the outer systems, but we cannot relocate trillions of citizens in 18 days. The massive doors to the chamber opened unexpectedly. The guards stiffened, weapons half raised, then lowered them again in confusion. A small human delegation walked calmly into the council chamber. Not holographic projections this time, physically present. Ambassador Marcus Reynolds led the group, his simple blue uniform standing out amid the elaborate attire of council representatives. Admiral Eliza Foster followed, her military bearing unmistakable. Behind them walked a woman the council didn't recognize, Dr. Aliyah Patel, head of Earth's Quantum Research Division. No council guards attempted to stop them. No weapons were raised. The silence that fell over the chamber was absolute. "You return at an opportune moment," Second Speaker Lirith remarked bitterly, her voice carrying despite her near transparency. "Here to witness our destruction?" Marcus stepped forward, his footsteps echoing in the vast space. "We're here to offer choices, Speaker Lirith, something the Council never truly offered humanity." Elder Joman moved closer, his ancient form hovering just above the floor. He studied the humans with eyes that had witnessed millennia of galactic history. "You've communicated with the Harvesters, the precursor remnants, it wasn't a question." "We have," Dr. Patel confirmed, speaking for the first time. Her voice was calm, precise. "Once we understood quantum consciousness technology, we recognized the patterns in what you call Harvester communication. It's not aggression, it's pain. The fractured consciousness of a species trying to rebuild itself after near extinction." Director Navarine moved forward, her natural telepathic abilities detecting no deception from the humans. "You're saying the Harvesters aren't attacking. They're searching?" "For 12,000 years, Admiral Foster explained, her military bearing unchanged despite standing before the most powerful governing body in known space. Searching for others who could hear them. Searching for justice." A wave of muttering spread through the assembled representatives. The Harvesters had been presented to the galactic community as a natural disaster, an inevitable calamity to be avoided, not confronted. "And you've sided with them against us," Third Speaker accused, mechanical shell vibrating with emotion. "No," Marcus responded firmly. "We've chosen a third path, one the Council never considered." Dr. Patel activated a small device she carried. A holographic representation of quantum pathways appeared between her hands. Complex, beautiful patterns connecting distant points of light. "We can communicate with them because we developed similar technology independently," she explained. "We've established a dialogue. They're willing to negotiate, not with the Council but with us as intermediaries." High Speaker Voruk looked up, his eyes reflecting the holographic display. For the first time, a flicker of hope appeared in his expression.
"What do they want?"
"Acknowledgement," Marcus said simply. "Recognition of what was done to them. Reparation, not vengeance. And assurance this will never happen again to any species showing similar evolutionary paths." "Including humans," Admiral Foster added pointedly. The revelation hung in the air. Most Council species had been taught that the Harvesters were a natural phenomenon, a cosmic disaster that occasionally swept through the galaxy. Only the highest levels of Council leadership knew the truth. Elder Joman nodded slowly. "The Council feared consciousness technology because of its power. We believed no species could be trusted with such capability. When the precursors developed it naturally, our ancestors saw them as an existential threat to all other life. So you attempted genocide," Foster stated flatly. "Not genocide," Third Speaker objected. "Containment. The precursors were becoming something beyond physical existence. something that could potentially overwrite all other consciousness in the galaxy. The attack was meant to halt their development, not exterminate them. But it failed, Dr. Patel observed. Instead of dying, their consciousness fragmented, becoming what you now call the harvesters, consuming worlds in an attempt to rebuild themselves. And yet here we stand, Marcus interjected, spreading his hands to indicate the human delegation, offering salvation instead of destruction, despite knowing what you planned for us. What does that tell you about your assumptions? The massive chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. For 12,000 years, the Council had enforced the Prohibition Protocols, preventing any species from developing quantum consciousness technology. They had done this out of fear of what had happened with the precursors, fear of what might happen if another species evolved beyond physical limitations. Yet humans had developed the technology in secret and were using it not for domination, but for communication. The Prohibition Protocols were wrong, Jomen finally admitted, his ancient voice carrying the weight of millennia. Fear guided our ancestors, and fear has guided us. Marcus stepped to the center of the chamber, to the exact spot where he had stood months earlier to announce humanity's withdrawal from peace talks. The Galactic Council faces extinction within weeks without our intervention. Earth proposes a new covenant, one based on technological freedom, species autonomy, and mutual respect. He uploaded documents to the Council system. These terms include full disclosure of Council history to all member species, abolishment of the Prohibition Protocols, and recognition of Earth as equal partners in a reformed galactic alliance. You would save those who plotted against you? Third speaker asked incredulously. Admiral Foster smiled slightly. We're human. Contradictions are our specialty. Dr. Patel added, the harvesters, the precursor remnants, will halt their advance if these terms are accepted. They seek recognition, not revenge. They want the galaxy to know what happened to them. And they want assurance it won't happen again. The Council representatives looked to their speakers, who for the first time in 12,000 years found themselves without clear authority. The Prohibition Protocols had been the foundation of Council power since its inception, the justification for technological oversight of all member species. Vorik studied the humans with new understanding. When you withdrew from peace talks, we already knew everything, Marcus confirmed. We needed to demonstrate our capability without revealing our full technology. To show you we were neither helpless nor conquerors. How long have you possessed this technology? Asked Director Navarine. Quantum consciousness research began almost a century ago, Dr. Patel explained. The breakthrough came 20 years back. We concealed it because we discovered references to the prohibition in data intercepted from early Council observation posts. The peace talks were a distraction, Vorik realized. While we focused on diplomatic proceedings, we completed the consciousness integration network, Foster confirmed, and used it to access your archives. We needed to understand why the Council feared this technology so deeply. The Council voted. It wasn't unanimous at first, but as the hours passed and more representatives understood the true nature of the harvester threat and the human solution, resistance faded. By dawn of the next day, the vote was complete. The Council accepted Earth's terms. 3 days later, the harvester fleet halted its advance. Quantum communications flowed between human nexus points and the vast consciousness collective. Ancient wounds began the slow process of healing as the fragmented precursor remnants found understanding at last. On the Council homeworld, representatives gathered for an unprecedented session, the formal dissolution of the old Council, and the establishment of the Galactic Alliance. The new charter explicitly protected technological development and recognized the sovereignty of all member species. This could have ended very differently, High Speaker Vorik observed quietly to Marcus as they watched the proceedings. It still might, Marcus replied honestly. Trust takes time to build, especially after millennia of secrecy. Why did humanity choose this path? Vorik asked. With your technology, you could have simply watched as the harvesters destroyed us. Many in your position would have seen it as justice. Marcus considered the question carefully. Humans have a long history of making the same mistake you did, fearing what we don't understand. But we also have a capacity for forgiveness, for seeing alternatives where others see only conflict. Dicom humanity withdraws from peace talks. The Galactic Council realizes its greatest mistake. Part 5. the choice 1 month after the formation of the Galactic Alliance. The former council chamber buzzed with activity. Where once only the highest representatives could speak, now voices from hundreds of species filled the air with a cacophony of languages, translated instantly by quantum consciousness links that connected minds directly when permitted. Ambassador Marcus Reynolds stood at the edge of the chamber, observing the historic session with quiet satisfaction. The physical space had been redesigned, no longer arranged in hierarchical tiers with speakers elevated above others, but a circular forum where all representatives occupied the same level. "Quite a change from your last visit here," observed Telvor, the former archivist who now led the Historical Reconciliation Committee. His perfect memory made him invaluable for the task of revealing the true history of the galaxy to all Alliance members. "Change was inevitable," Marcus replied, "though I admit I never expected it to happen this quickly." "Necessity accelerates adaptation," Telvor noted philosophically. His species' natural honesty had found new purpose in the Alliance, helping to establish trust where millennia of council secrecy had created suspicion. At the center of the chamber, Admiral Foster addressed the assembled representatives. The quantum projection system allowed her to appear simultaneously in the chamber while physically remaining on Earth, a technology now available to all Alliance species. The integration of consciousness technology proceeds at different rates across member worlds, she reported. As expected, some biological configurations adapt more readily than others. Earth continues to provide technical assistance to all who request it. High Representative Voruk, no longer called speaker in the new system, nodded in acknowledgement. His species had embraced the new technology with surprising enthusiasm once their initial fear subsided. "The medical applications alone have revolutionized our healing practices," he noted. Direct consciousness connection allows physicians to experience patient symptoms firsthand. Director Navarine, whose telepathic abilities gave her natural affinity for the technology, added, 37 formerly council worlds have established quantum nexus points. The consciousness network grows daily. Marcus watched the proceedings with a mixture of pride and caution. Earth had achieved what seemed impossible just months ago, a complete reformation of galactic governance and the sharing of their most advanced technology. Yet challenges remained. On the other side of the chamber, Dr. Aliyah Patel worked with representatives from various worlds, explaining technical aspects of quantum implementation. Her patience seemed inexhaustible as she answered the same questions repeatedly, understanding the magnitude of the conceptual shift required. "Not everyone welcomes this change," noted a voice beside Marcus. Elder Joman had approached silently, his ancient form barely disturbing the air. "There are still those who fear what consciousness technology might become. Fear doesn't disappear overnight," Marcus acknowledged. "Not after 12,000 years of prohibition. We expected resistance. Yet you proceed anyway," Joman observed. "Confident in your path." "Not confident," Marcus corrected. "Hopeful. There's a difference." The chamber's atmosphere suddenly shifted as the quantum network detected an incoming communication. The massive display at the center activated, showing what appeared to be a shimmering cloud of light. The visual representation chosen for communication with the entity, formerly known as the Harvesters. The precursor remnants communication didn't use words as physical species understood them. Instead, concepts and emotions flowed directly through the quantum network, translated imperfectly into terms biological minds could comprehend. "Progress acknowledged," came the translated message, appearing as text beneath the shimmering visualization. "Healing continues. Remembrance accepted." A ripple of unease passed through some representatives. Despite the peace agreement, many still feared the precursors, conditioned by millennia of viewing them as mindless destroyers. Admiral Foster stepped forward. The precursor collective reports continued reintegration of their fragmented consciousness. The memorial worlds established in Sectors 7 through 12 have been recognized as sufficient acknowledgement of historical wrongs. "And they will remain within their designated regions?" asked a representative from a world that had suffered harvester attacks in recent history. "They have no desire for physical territory as we understand it," Foster explained patiently. "Their consciousness exists primarily in quantum space now. The physical manifestations you called harvesters were simply tools they used in their fragmented state to gather energy for reunification, tools that consumed entire worlds, the care, representative noted grimly. Out of desperation, not malice, Dr. Patel interjected, joining the conversation. Imagine having your mind shattered into billions of pieces, each seeking to reconnect but lacking the means to communicate. That was their existence for 12,000 years. The chamber fell silent as the representatives contemplated this perspective. For most, the harvesters had been a nameless, faceless threat, a force of nature to be avoided. Seeing them as victims required a profound shift in understanding. The precursors request expanded communication access, Foster continued. Specifically, they wish to share historical knowledge from before the Prohibition era. This caused immediate debate. While some representatives eagerly supported learning from the ancient consciousness, others expressed concern about potential influence over developing species. We cannot simply erase 12,000 years of caution overnight, argued third representative, formerly the third speaker. His mechanical shell had been upgraded with quantum interfaces, allowing his gaseous form greater expression. The precursors may have legitimate grievances, but their technological advantage remains overwhelming. As was yours over newer species for millennia, Marcus pointed out calmly. Yet now you advocate for caution when you're not the most advanced party. The observation struck home. Many former council species had to confront uncomfortable truths about how they had treated lesser civilizations under their governance. Elder Joman floated to the center of the chamber, commanding attention without demanding it, a skill honed over thousands of years. Perhaps the question before us is more fundamental than we realize. Not whether we should fear advanced consciousness, but whether consciousness itself has natural limitations we imposed artificially. He gestured to the human representatives. Earth developed quantum technology independently and chose connection rather than domination. The precursors, by all historical accounts, sought transcendence rather than conquest before our intervention. What if our fear has been misplaced all along? The debate continued for hours, passionate but respectful in a way council proceedings had never been. Marcus watched with growing optimism as representatives from species who had been enemies under the old system found common ground in addressing the future. It's working better than we anticipated, Foster noted privately to Marcus through their secure quantum link. Don't celebrate yet, he cautioned. Change this fundamental takes time to stabilize. Always the diplomat, she replied with amusement. But even you must admit the transition has been remarkably peaceful considering what was at stake. Marcus nodded slightly. Because we gave them a choice, not an ultimatum. In Earth's quantum nexus beneath the Pacific, Secretary Williams monitored the Alliance proceedings while simultaneously tracking implementation progress across former council space. The quantum network allowed for this kind of multitasking, consciousness split across multiple focal points while remaining integrated. Sector 14 report successful nexus activation, he noted to the technical team. That's 53 worlds now connected to the network. And integration with precursor consciousness streams? Asked his deputy. Limited but stable, Williams confirmed. They're being cautious, as are we. Trust builds slowly. On the main display, the shimmering representation of precursor communication continued its dialogue with Alliance representatives. Unlike the formal, ritualized exchanges of council proceedings, these conversations flowed naturally, concepts building upon each other regardless of who offered them. In orbit above Earth, the quantum satellite array completed another expansion phase. The technology that had been developed in secret during the long years of council observation now operated openly, connecting human consciousness across impossible distances and bridging gaps between species that biology could never cross. Citizens across Earth followed the Alliance proceedings with varying degrees of interest. For many, daily life continued largely unchanged despite the revolutionary developments in space. Yet subtle shifts were becoming apparent. New technologies emerging from shared knowledge, philosophical concepts evolving as human consciousness connected with profoundly different minds. Back in the Alliance chamber, the session reached its conclusion. The vote was taken. The precursors would be granted expanded communication access under mutually agreed protocols. Not the unanimous decision the old council would have required, but a solid majority representing genuine consensus rather than enforced agreement. As representatives dispersed, Marcus found himself alone with Elder Joman once more.